So we are live on Game Playing You today. My special guest, SallyAnn Reiss, CEO of PlayyOn. That wasn't that difficult getting this set up now, was it?
No, small bugs, but still, it's great that this service works so well.
It's show business. This is how it works, right? It's behind the scenes, the annex. Well, thanks for spending some time with me.
It's my pleasure.
So we are live on LinkedIn right now. So I'm going to be putting up on a second. I want our viewers to ask any questions and text us some questions. So the text is down below, 518-867-1117. You can text it to me. Please add your name in there if you feel comfortable doing it. First name is fine. And then we'll read the question out. But so this show is really about entrepreneurship, startovers, startups, career seekers within the sports industry. And I think your story is unique and different. And I would love to hear about your journey and how you got to this point.
Oh, that's a long journey. So I was actually born and raised in northern British Columbia, Canada. I went to the University of Victoria. I had the chance to play basketball and to crew at University of Victoria, as well as go to university, which is probably the main reason we're all there, and graduated with a Bachelor of Arts in Economics and Political Science. From there, I went overseas to work. I worked in Australia and in Japan, where I was doing mostly at that time investment banking. And after Japan, I went to France, to Paris, same thing, Banque de Suez. And then my next adventure brought me to California, where I was working here at the Hoover Institute on Stanford campus, doing some research work for two economists that were studying massive databases. And it was at that time that I started coaching locally basketball. A side note is that whenever I landed somewhere for work, whether it was Japan or Australia or France, I always found a basketball team to play with. And that's always sort of been my third part of my life. There's the work, my personal, and then my sports life. And when I landed here, I started coaching at the local private girls' school, Castellea, and always been involved in sports as a coach. And then I got married. I had my own children. And of course, if you know anything about sports, you become the coach for your kids' team.
Right.
So that's my background. Interesting enough, after my work, after leaving the Hoover Institute to have children, I took a few years off. I went back and I started doing startup companies, because all the things that you learn when you're playing a sport like basketball is how to strive, how to succeed, how to go for what you want, how to be organized, to be rigorous about the process. And I think when you're an entrepreneur, you have to have those skill sets, and that's what I did. And my very first startup was that I got involved with was a company called Not Limited, which was and now I'm dating myself, that's 25 years ago, of sending packages of data to each other without wires. Interesting enough, we never got off the ground because nobody believed anybody would ever use this things without wires, which is of course now Wi-Fi. Actually, it's Bluetooth. But we ended up, I ended up getting involved in my very first successful startup, which was at that time a company called Teleworld, which is now everybody knows of is TiVo, the Pause Live TV. And all the skill sets of just, playing on the run that as an athlete, I just applied those to my work world. And TiVo was a very successful company. I was along for the ride. I was employee number one. And we took that company public. And there's a pattern to everything there. It's about multitasking and just getting stuff done and not having to be told what to do is why I felt like I did so well in my job. And then after TiVo, I had my third child at the end of my TiVo experience and took a step back. And then when I started to come back into it, I realized I had people asking me, hey, I've got this little idea. You think it's a company? And I realized that all startups are the same. And so I started just applying those principles. Like, if you want to start a company, here's what you need to do. You have to think about this, this, and this. And I always say, you have to figure out, first of all, is it a business? Then you have to build a team. Then you have to build a product. Then you have to build value in the company. And those are the things that I've been doing as an entrepreneur. And I've done it for biotech companies, supercomputer companies, consumer products, and now my own company. This is not somebody else's company. This is mine, which is PlayyOn. And this comes from a very personal space, because when I was out there coaching, and I was now involved in a big club, girls basketball club, and actually it was my daughter that was playing in it. And I realized that there was no software built for the sports and recreation community specific to the needs of the organizer, who has so much to do besides just coaching, but also the end users, the athletes, the parents, participants. And so I said, right, let's fix this. And I set off to do that. And that's where the current company is PlayyOn, which is truly about a platform for sports and recreation.
I want to dive real deep into that, but I want to take a step back, because there's so many, I'm sure, great stories in each one of those startups. But your transition, there's two parts of this question. The first one is, from what did you learn about yourself from the transition from working in the finance world for a big corporation to then working and being employee number 2 or 3 or number 1 in the startup world? What were those skill sets, and what did you learn about yourself?
You know, I think in business, the people that you're working for have already thought it through, and oftentimes you're executing. So in a big corporation, they're like, you'll sit down with a group of people and you'll say, okay, we've got to meet these metrics. And this is what we're going to do. And they've thought through the whole entire process, and you're there to execute, which I always did with great enthusiasm. And I think probably the one thing that my employers used to always say to me is, less ideas, more execution. You
Right.
have to execute, right? It's not just about having ideas. It's about actually getting things done and meeting metrics. When you're in a startup company, you have to do everything. You have to really be involved in not just saying, well, that's not my job. You have to just do everything. Even if you're the CEO of the company, you have to make sure that if those guys are up late coding, that somebody goes out and gets some dinner, puts it out in front of them, and cleans it up. And that can be you. So I think the difference is, when you're in a big corporation, you're just doing your job. When you're in a small startup, you have to do everything to make it work. And it's not always your job.
What did you find out about, this is the second part of the question, when you look at being as a former athlete and as a former female athlete, in the transition now with a lot of these pro athletes who are coming out, who have a higher platform of brand recognition in 2020, what do you see are the challenges with not only male athletes, but female pro athletes then transitioning into a startup or a professional space, that they have a little bit of a head start, but what do you think some of their challenges and some of the things that they're tripping over within that, kind of transition period?
A lot of professional athletes, and I had a really nice opportunity last week at Stanford to speak with Shanae Ogumake, and Festus was also there, Azili. And we were talking about who you are as a person and an athlete, and then a professional athlete. And one of the things I thought Festus really said is when he got really badly hurt and he had to step out of it, he had to really address his identity outside of being an athlete. And so he had to say, I am still a person who works really hard to do whatever I want to do. I need to be able to say that I'm that person that strives to win no matter what I'm doing. So it doesn't have to be sports. So I think these people that come out of professional sports, there's two things that they already have. They have a brand, and that brand can be used as an influencer. And I think that that's a huge asset, because customer acquisition is one of the biggest challenges most people have, which is, I need people to listen to me. So professional athletes already have that. And by the way, if they haven't been building that up through their professional life, they better get on it. They need to develop influencers and followers big time by the time they retire.
Hmm.
So that's an asset that they have by the time they retire. The second part of that, though, is now transitioning into their own private companies, is hiring people that know what they're doing. So, for example, I am, I feel like I can do anything. So when I start up a company, the first thing I say to myself is, what can I not do? And then I hire people that can do that. So I cannot code. I wish I could, but I can't.
Hmm.
And I can do a little Python, but that's irrelevant to my world. And so I hire really good A+ people. And I make sure that I reach out to people that know how to hire those A+ people to come work for me. So I don't just hire a friend. I don't just go meet the first guy on the street. I hire somebody who's going to bring the same level of quality that I am, but I don't know how to do that. A lot of marketing is a skill set, and you need to hire really good people to do that. And they are blind spots for a lot of athletes, because most athletes think, I can do this, but save yourself the trouble, hire professionals.
What is it of, I mean, that's great advice. And I think a lot of people, what I'm seeing now in the sports tech startup space is there's a lot of pro athletes that do have the resources. So
Yeah.
either they have the resources they want to invest, or they want to start a startup themselves, and that they don't have any experience at all.
I know.
And I think your advice of just hiring people that know what they're doing, and it's becoming sort of, I don't want to say it's a little bit cliche, but there's a lot of these VCs are aligning themselves with these brand name pro athletes, and I don't know if that's working to their favor.
I would agree with you. But I'm
Yeah.
going to tell you one thing. Startups are super exciting. They're
Yeah.
fun. It's like being the underdog and coming back and winning the game. They also suck.
Yeah.
Lonely. It's hard. It does not happen overnight. And it's a lot of hard work. It doesn't just happen. As any professional athlete knows, you've got to put in the hours. A little bit of skill and talent, a lot of hard work.
Talk.
So, yeah, anyway, I'm just going to go back to that commentary, though, so I can see how it's really attractive to them and they want to get involved. So I'm not going to stop them.
Right.
What I would say is realize that the asset that they bring is something with an idea and money. A lot of them have money and resources. Don't throw it away at just an idea. Throw it away at a plan, or throw it towards a plan rather than just an idea.
That you're going to be involved in, right? That you roll up your sleeves and then you find a place that you feel comfortable with, whether that's business development or whatever it may be. So talk about this, because as a leader, the skill set of running a startup is being a leader and overcoming adversity and getting knocked down. And like you said, the hard work that goes into it. What are some of your daily routines that help you from a mental health and wellness standpoint? And how important is that to you, to getting up every day and being positive and motivated and kind of handling the grind?
It's a really interesting thing. And a lot of it is just about remembering that you own your own perspective, right? So it's all the problems and everything that are out there are just about the way you're going to interpret them. It's nothing personal. So if that deal falls through, unless you screwed up big time, it's usually nothing personal. It's just not their area of investment, or it wasn't the right thing. So it's about perseverance. And everybody knows that great line that says, this is not a sprint, it's a marathon. You have to just keep talking to yourself saying, I can do this, I can do this. One of the other things that I, of course, is I work out every day. I try and do something physical every day that reminds me that I'm really enjoying life. And then, of course, it's people. So as a leader in my companies that I've been involved in, my job has not been to tell people what to do. It's to get them to believe in themselves so that they get it done. And I never tell people what to do. I usually say to them, what would you like to get done and how can I support you?
Yeah.
And by the way, those are all mentorships that I've had from other people. And of course, there's always John Doerr's idea, which is lead by making sure everybody understands what the objectives are and what the key results are. And then just make sure everybody understands they're a part of those key results.
Nuggets of gold. Great knowledge that you're sharing. So I appreciate it. So let's talk about PlayyOn. Let's do that. Again, you could text in some questions, 518-867-1117. You can read it right there. Let's talk about PlayyOn. I mean, you mentioned that you saw a need in the marketplace. So what is the platform? So give us your 2-minute elevator pitch.
Well, look, just like almost everybody that I've ever met who's had to organize something in sports and recreation, whether it's a camp or an academy or a club or a team or a league, anybody, they always struggle with two things. How do I connect, communicate, and transact? Actually, that's three things. Connect, communicate, and transact online. When we originally came up with this idea, we were a little early in the marketplace because a lot of people still weren't used to using their smartphones to do everything. But now we're straight in the middle of it. And we've got all of our growth because people realize as an organizer, I have to make it really easy for my participant, the customer, to engage. Easy, like 3 clicks of the button, we're done. And so we have a platform that is instant, it's easy, and it's affordable. We don't have any price barriers. We don't charge people up front. It's a transaction-based platform. So if the organization is making money, then we take a small percentage of that transaction, but only if they're making money. We try and be free, easy, instant to use.
Who's your key clients? Is it park recs or youth sports organizations?
Yes.
Okay.
So we have everything from competitive AAU basketball clubs on here, pro-am football, softball, baseball, everything big like that. But we also have sailing camps and sailing clubs, chess clubs, book clubs. We've got trainers that do it for hockey, a lot of flag football, a lot of ultimate frisbee. It's people, everyday people, and I always say they're everyday people because most of our customers, the ones that come in and say, we're going to use PlayyOn as our platform, are guys who have day jobs or women that like work all day and then they come home and they're organizing it as the team parent or the team captain. These are people that just have a love of what's going on, and bless them, because without them, we wouldn't have sports.
Right.
We wouldn't have opportunities.
So what is it? Is it scheduling software? So alerts and notifications about, rain dates or changing schedule and practice. Does it also do tournament bracketing and scheduling?
It does. So the first thing that is that like if let's just say you and I decide that we're going to set up a bi-coastal basketball league.
Oh, I like that idea.
I know, let's do 3-on-3 mix.
Let's do it.
And I say to you, okay, Rob, you're in charge of getting everybody signed up and paid. Well, you're going to be like, well, what do I do? Like, I need a website. I need to be able to put up registration opportunities. I need forms. I need to collect data. I need to collect money. Once everybody's set up, then I need to put people onto teams, or maybe they already signed up as teams. And then we need to set up the schedule and all those different things. And then you want to feed so that people are constantly looking at it going, oh, look, they won, they lost, or look at that photo. It has a little bit of what I always say, Eventbrite, TeamSnap, and a Facebook all mixed up into one. And it's really for the next generation. I know that a lot of, unfortunately, my generation, our social media is email, but that's not social media to the next group. The next group is, I'm going to go somewhere to my community and look at what's going on. So the Gen Zers are all about communities, and they have their work community. They've got their social community. They've got their school community, and we're going to be their sports and recreation community. So it's really, at this point, it's a transaction platform so that the organizer can organize everybody. The end user can come in and easily sign up. But now they also have a way of following people, following camps, following teams, whatever they want to be able to do.
Got a couple questions that came in. Are you ready for them?
I don't know. Let's see.
All right. So these are just random questions that folks are texting me. The first one is, what was your first challenge when you got started originally? And then how did you overcome that challenge? Was it technical or was it business development?
With PlayyOn or with my career, do you think?
With PlayyOn.
Well, the first problem is that we were ahead of the industry, right? So we knew that this social connected CRM type database, I call it an interest network, like, it basically people with common interests and similar needs for sports record. We were way ahead of the curve. And like I said, most of the organizers that we were meeting still had flip phones. And we're like, okay, that's a bit of a problem. And so we realized that it was going to have to be two different portals. That initially we were going to have a portal for the organizer so they could use their computers. And then for the end users who were more likely to use their smartphones, they would use it on their phone. And so it was the biggest challenge, in my opinion, for any company is figuring out exactly who your customer is, every aspect of their profile. And, when I meet somebody and they're like, I have an idea, I'm like, great, who's your customer? And they're like, well, everybody's my customer. I'm like, no, who's your decision maker? Who's going to be the person that says, I'm using that platform, we're using this software? And for us, it took us a while to figure out exactly what our customer, that organizer, who they were and what they needed. And then we wanted to make sure that whatever we gave them, they could succeed with it.
That's a great answer. So another one looks like from the same person who did not leave their name here, but from a technology standpoint, would you recommend outsourcing your coding and your development or hiring internally so you have more control?
It's about finances. It's about resources.
Got it.
So if you, and location, you want to be, and so I live in Silicon Valley and I get to compete with the Googles and the Microsofts and the Intels of the world. So to bring on A+ players, I had to go outside of the Valley. And I've actually hired teams in both Canada and Australia. I have no problem with outsourcing whatsoever. You just have to know what you're doing. And I would say that the very first group, by the way, that I did a project with, I actually went out. Remember we talked about blind spots? I went out and found a co-founder business partner who was an engineer. And that allowed me to be able to focus on the customer and their needs, not the coding. And then we taught each other a little bit, like he taught me about sprints and he taught me about epics and all those different things that you need to know about software. And I taught him all about the business development end and the marketing end and all the things that I knew. But I always say to people, partner with somebody if you can. They need to have skin in the game.
Very true. Very, very true. And that's, I've definitely have found that to be the case. I've done both internally and externally, and I found that they're equally as expensive, but it came down to control. Really, can I go knock on the door and get a problem solved right away if there was a bug? I found that to be a little bit more of a benefit. All right. So this one's about raising money. So it could have, whether it applies to PlayyOn or not, raising capital, in your opinion, is it better to go with a angel investor or a VC?
Better. It depends what stage you're at, because you usually don't get to choose. Right? So I often, here's what I would say to people is, when you have an idea and you just need a little bit of money to see if you have a business, take angel money. If you go after VC money and you don't have a concept of who your customer is, what your business model is really going to look like, the VCs are going to shut you down right away. So you're going to chase your tail for a while. But if you just need a little bit of money to get going, people are rarely going to invest big amounts on an idea. They'll probably invest a small amount on you as a person who can show what they can get done. That's really where the chance. So if you can convince a great uncle or somebody like that to give you a little bit of money just to get through that stage, then do it.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, you walk into a VC firm and say, you know, I need $3 million for this great idea. They're going to look at you like, there's the door. But, oh, actually, they're not. They're never mean. They'll usually say, like, that's a great idea. Come back to us when you have some traction.
Right.
Right. Which means you've already figured out who your customer is and you've already started to get some growth. Yeah.
Perfect. Talk about this one is a long one, but I'm going to shorten it up for you. Talk about an advisory board or a board of directors. How important is that at the startup stage, or do you wait until you have a business cranking?
Okay. So board of directors is very different than an advisory board. Do not mix them up. A board of directors is corporate governance. And if it's just you and a lawyer, so be it. What you really want to make sure is that you file things properly, that when somebody does due diligence on you, you've done everything by the laws of your bylaws. When you incorporate, you get bylaws. And that's a really important thing to do. And hold a quarterly board meeting. Boring stuff. When somebody gives you a lot of money, they're going to want a spot on the board because they want to make sure you're spending that money correctly. That's who you put on that board. And it can be a little bit of a thing too, like, oh, you can come on my board as long as you ante up some money. Board of advisors, you should already have one. So you should have at least 3 people giving you advice in 3 different areas: growth, business development, and then leadership. And again, I think, especially for women who tend to be a little bit apologetic about taking the reins, it's important to have leadership to let people tell you that you're the right person to lead that company at this stage. Absolutely. So get 3 mentors, I call them, advisors, mentors, whatever you want to say, and have them help you be a leader, understand growth, understand business development.
Do you typically, this is not a question that someone asked, but I'm going to ask you, do you typically give your advisors equity in the company?
I give them options. Yes, I do.
All right.
Because I have a very clear, and there's lots of good resources out there. Always happy to send it to you, Rob, and you can make it available.
Yeah.
Good resources out there of, if you're going to ask somebody to do something for them, and these are their different levels of involvement, then this is how much equity you should give them. There's kind of a template out there for that. And I always say to my folks, look, this is what I will want you to do. Once a month, I want to be able to do this. I want to be able to call you if I have a question about this. I won't bother you more than once a week. But it's a really good way to set that person's mind at ease. Like, oh, they're not expecting me to come in and work every day. It's just once a month. Yeah.
Wonderful. Last question for you. I mean, a half hour goes by really fast.
No, I can't believe we've been on.
I know.
Nobody ever has troubles getting me to talk.
So. Well, you've been wonderful. What advice would you give yourself when you were 20, 21 years old? If you had to go back in time, what advice would you, what the 21-year-old SallyAnn?
Talk less, listen more. I think I've been very, very fortunate in my life to be able to pursue things that mean something to me. I can tell you that every single company I've worked with, I'm very passionate about what I do. And, life is short. So like even our vision of our company, which is to help people participate in sports and recreation, is kind of lofty, but it moves me. And I'm really fortunate to have done that. You also realize it comes with sacrifice. I did a lot of traveling. Nobody handed me a job. I pursued those jobs heartily, and I made a lot of sacrifices. I was lonely a lot of the times. I didn't own a car until I was 30 years old. I lived out of a backpack essentially for 5 years. You make a lot of sacrifices to get the things you want in life. And I think that when I look back on that 21-year-old Sally, she was doing that. That's the advice I'd say to young people is, you get one life to live and you got to go for it. And but realize it comes with sacrifice. There's no entitlement in this world whatsoever. And prepare yourself. Get a good education. Take some chances when you're young to go pursue a dream, and sleep on your friend's couch if you need to pursue that dream. But it comes with sacrifices. Listen more, talk less.
I love it. Well, listen, thank you so much for your time. Just spin your chair around, go grab that bottle of champagne, pop it open. Doesn't matter if it's warm or not. Just get a cold glass and enjoy it.
I'll tell you what, that champagne there is for when we hit our millionth PlayyOn customer. So a friend of mine gave that because they really believe it. He also gave me an investment, but he said to me, what you're doing is really a good thing, and I want you to just go do it. So here's your little enticement. So.
Oh, well, a bottle of champagne is a good one. So thank you so much for being on Game Plan You today. Hopefully we'll see you down. If you haven't heard, we're having a startup weekend in Orlando, May 28th and 30th, and we would love to see you there.
Wow, that's fantastic. I didn't know, and I think I might have to jump on a plane and come see you guys.
I think so. Actually, I think you'd be great on a panel and running one of our workshops down there for the young, early stage startups. So I'll send you some information on there. But anyways, thank you for your time. It was great. I'm glad we were able to pull this together and figure out our digital part of it and our technology. So
thank you, Rob. Great work that you're doing. Take care.
Thanks so much. And so I'm Rob. That's SallyAnn over there. Thanks, everybody, for watching Game Plan You today. We are live on LinkedIn. Take care, everybody.